I am the Spirit. I am Savaya, also known as Gabriel. And the word of the day is joy, in the freedom to express ourselves in a way that might sound inexpressive of sound, of movement, of choice, when there is an Eastern tradition that recognizes the movement of the formless, indescribable presence that through the Western Hemisphere, the opposite polarity has taken form. In movement, in sound, in formation. And so, this video, this recording, this message is an experiment. Like all things, is an experiment to see what higher state of experience can be achieved. And right now, there are two things that form a challenge in the world, as it has for some time, but technology and the internet is a more recent phenomenon that I might discuss in a different way. The whole experience of living and working, climbing the ladder, elevating the quota, the returns, and the unattachment to having inordinate amounts of returns and wealth, while still finding a way to express the product or service at hand that is based on a higher principle, not as a means to lower our ability to build and resolve that which is deeply wounded, namely the psyche, and how resources can be appropriated to assist in building that psyche. But the other formation of this message is about cohesive communication, and that is very difficult with all the social media, the phenomenon of electric mail, with a whole tide, a whole wave, a whole industry of movements, entities, various conglomerates that are either in one or multiple fields working for some cause. But social media often has a large divisive point that can be very difficult to reckon with alongside the realm of work, survival, living, ensuring that people are not being exploited too much, even though there are some concessions in this current climate that many people do believe is necessary, and it is somewhat necessary from the level of my consciousness, which is not the ultimate consciousness. And so the nexus point between work and communication is an interesting phenomenon. A phenomenon that requires a bit of death, at least the sense of death that comes with sharing ourselves anew, sharing ideas that challenge norms, that produce principles that do away with the history of collapsing civilizations, conditions, and humanitarian values. So, it might be said that it will remain a mystery in the times ahead until an international coalition is formed that isn't just secular and democratic, which is important, but that is also spiritual and how shall we might say, is the education that brings physics and metaphysics closer to a union. And so in the meantime, besides what's being said in between the lines, the words, it seems that there is a certain high level of accomplishment, a high level of growth in consciousness for the people who try to synthesize the social media through the nexus into work and communal interactions, community building, community movement, which is hard to come by because for many resources are scarce. But for the middle class, upper middle class, and the upper class, there is more that can be done, or more leeway that can be given to help propel a movement synthesizing religions, sciences, and government, which, in the eyes of the spirit, government is that synthesis between religion and science, and the fractures and distortions paid between the dynamics of these institutions have resulted in huge shrapnel being blown in various time periods and directions that caused massive bloodshed, and still today incurs massive bloodshed, or what might be considered the pranic fluid, the magnetic fluid that runs through the points that animate our consciousness, our being, our body. So the picture, as it is being spoken of, is not as easy as just inviting everyone we know to a space from where we can talk, where we can celebrate, where we can study and listen, and then eventually strategize, organize, and execute actions for the other hemisphere of work and money, surviving responsibilities, ensuring one's needs are taken care of, is drooped and shrouded in dense vibrations, dense circumstances for many people. Although Some people have been able to find harmony, melody, and rhythm for certain lines of work, provided that they are continuing to raise the bar through ideas that give exposure to their art, to the way in which shows. There is a continuous evolution of ideas that help us unite and realize we have always been united. Despite the divisions, despite the evil, despite the collapse of civilization, there has always been an interconnected, an interlinking, interdependent thread And so, by our own example, we will begin to showcase the steps required or desired that can shift the equation. As I have spoken of many times, shifting the equation through speaking out, through internalizing and observing, and to some degrees contemplating without hyper-analyzing our own consciousness, our own attitudes, perceptions, experiences, reactions, and so forth. So, what is left in our realm of opportunity to bring a higher state depends on our understanding that no outer state is separated from the inner state. And if we are going to build a highway, an interstate to an experience that gives us resolve, that gives us optimism, that gives us clarity towards all the things happening in the world and how none of it is bad or wrong or necessarily should not be happening, but is just an outplaying of free will and people's desire to experience certain experiences, even if it is related to the school of hard knocks, of blood and trauma and fear and despair and tragedy and horror. And on the other side of that coin, there is a whole plethora of states of consciousness that have the ability to be internalized by those who see behind the religions, behind the sciences, there is a government that has always been in order to deploy the actions that bring justice, but not a justice based on punishment, but a justice based on the middle way, balancing the polarities of being, masculine, feminine, yin and yang, light and dark. But people might say, what about good and bad? Republican, Democrat, believers and atheists. What middle way are you talking about there? It is the middle of the figure eight. That impulses, or that pulsates the heartbeat of the energy system, be it macro or micro. solar or individual. Or, never mind. So, this video will not look like a call to action because there isn't an action that is predominantly required for us to realize the ideal society is underway as we continue to see that society inside of ourselves and take those step-by-step measures that bring us gradually closer until we've reached certain moments of our life where we do need to take a revolutionary stand or engage in a dynamic shift of patterns that allows us to increase our service, which may or not necessarily be about activism and bureaucracy and politics and so forth, even though government is the central median point between the battles being fought through religion, spirituality, science, technology. Another word that can be replaced with technology is business. But for now, let us just say some things about what fear, what taboo, what mystery may be in the air. And so, the most simple way of putting this, if it can be done in one sentence, may be considered as bringing our circle of people that we know into the square of people that we don't know, often associated with our work, our job, our local environment. And that is a task that is multi-generational, multinational, it is the paradigm shift, whereby there can be cohesive synergy and symbiosis in this organism we call life, where there won't be so much of this isolating, escapist echo chamber dilemma that is so prevalent at this time, where there are those who are just wanting to band together because they all validate, coddle, and agree with their paradigm they believe in, failing or ignoring might be the better word, as it is their right to include those who are in their circle and outside their circle. And so the triangle is formed when those people can recognize we are united, we are one, we are expanding through the evolutionary cycle of will and choice and mere flow of consciousness according to our development, according to our traumas, addictions, our placement amongst the planet. And so there does not seem to be much more that I wish to share. But as I tune in to the agents of spirit that can seem, and actually, let me put it this way, as I tune in to the agents of spirit, those who have been assisting the race since its inception, what current seems to be externalizing itself? Well, there are periods of time where it does not seem there is a whole lot that can be done on the outside through via action and our local situation, which may or may not have a responsive audience, whether the population is large or small, rural or urban. What seems to be the important principle at hand is a certain dynamic between enjoying life, enjoying the field that forms our gift. For some it could be art, for others it could be science, for some it could be related to certain business or certain forms of spirituality. But the test of all people is recognizing the unity that already and has always existed between the fields, between the people, between the rise and fall of civilization, the birth and death of certain stars, planets, as with the evolution of bigger and more expanded solar systems and galaxies, as in cases there are infusions between and perhaps more could be said, but for now there's a lot that cannot be said. But in stages, a lot can be said. But no amount of saying things will determine our own wholeness, our own execution into the current that draws us higher in consciousness, that draws us into choosing to experiment and explore our creativity in whatever field or area that we see there is a desire for. But there may not be one area that fits all, in the sense that there is one area that fulfills your being, as there could be multiple, or it could take multiple attempts to realize there is a field that honors all the fields. Is this the field of presidents? The field of messiahs and ingenious innovators? Without giving it a name, you all, including Savaya will experience as we choose the experience. That which is the pulsating current that draws us into the realization that we can become the double star igniting a new geometrical form that takes the Platonic solids into a whole new dimension, so that we may see the multidimensional fabric of life that always lies before us. So a very esoteric, a very, maybe more so termed mystical, allocation of consciousness according to the filter of Savaya. But he has more to study on varying lines, acquainted with the paradigm of Aquarius, which is a different cycle than Pisces, from which there is now a more direct movement into realizing the number 7, realizing law and order, business, and principles that underpin currency, that underpin policy, and certain inventions, which is a challenge for those who are more mystically inclined. But those who are more secular and intellectually inclined do also have a challenge to consider the feminine principles that coordinate the synthesis of life, the synthesis of love, with courage, creativity, and so that is the message. Take it as you will, and what more needs to be said? Thank you for listening, including you, Gabriel, for we are one, even though you don't always see that we are one. And when I speak of we, I am impressing to the listeners of this video that there are more than just single states of mind, of being, expressing itself here. There's a whole universe of ideas and entities, and some should be questioned, some should be challenged, some require further discernment. Viveka, to really understand how manipulation can take form through the varying fields that are currently in existence on planet Earth, through public opinion, known knowledge, intellectual data. So, with that being said, there's no ultimate answer, no ultimate system, no ultimate society. that can determine the process for each person, each one of us, to synthesize and coordinate our circle with our own square, so that the triangle can emerge from the triangle that has always been submerged, giving us, when realized, the star that is not just 6-pointed, it is 7-pointed, and at a certain point another point is added, until we realize this isn't just a star we are dealing with. We are dealing with something that doesn't have a name. And many names can be given to what is many pointed. And that is what we all have the right to employ and officiate by taking dominion over this world. The world of the Creator, the world of the reflector, of the Creator, that we are, never separated, as a co-creator and a creator. The Creator. So, a bit ethereal, a bit abstract, but some of you may benefit, some of you may not. Enjoy the ride as it continues on, but for now, we are here with you. And we wish to allow you the opportunity to share, with your eyes open or your eyes closed, the spirit of thine heart, the spirit that is guiding thine heart, which you may not know the name for, but you can tune in and allow it to be released through writing, speaking, painting, experimenting, in various ways. And so, until next time, adieu, dear ones.